Then Hiawatha invited those present to bend down, and using only their hands, to begin digging into the ground around the forest soil, beneath the needles and moss. And all joined, and began digging a trench around the base of this tree that Hiawatha likened to the well-rooted tree of war. He forbade the use of any tools or implements, but the enthusiasm of the chiefs was strong, and as they dug, their hands were joined by the hands of all those who were able to get near enough to be of any use. Soon a deep trench appeared around the base of the tree. It was not long before the ancient branches rippled slightly as a light shiver ran through the tree from the ground upward, signifying the departure of the spirit. The first beginning creaks of instability were faintly audible around its base. Hiawatha held up his hand and called a stop to the digging. He invited me to step from among the circle. I walked through the trench that surrounded the tree and climbed until I stood beside the mighty trunk. "Working together," I said, holding up my hand, fingers spread for all to see. "Working together as the fingers of one hand, our 5 nations have great power, for behind us then is the power of the Great Spirit. When we align ourselves with the purposes of heaven and act in common accord, we have all of the natural forces working with us, supporting us, helping us. Though the truth may be simple as a human hand, and though it may be gentle as gentle as a hand, aligned with the powers of heaven and the powers of earth, that single hand can stand up to the greatest lie, to the most entrenched habit or tradition, to the most stubborn and firmly rooted illusion, and that single hand can topple it as easily as my single hand now topples this tree." During the time I had been speaking, many claimed they saw towering above the trees the great winged beings of light who bring the Creator's power to the earth. As I placed my hand upon the tree, many claimed to have heard the rustling of their wings. But even those who did not see or hear these things felt the rush of wind that joined my human strength as the great tree, with a rumbling, crackling eruption, ripped itself from its roots in the earth and fell crashing to the forest floor. The power and solemnity of the occasion were so marked, not one warrior's head turned, not one human heart in fear skipped a beat. Such a deep atmosphere of trust filled the assembled multitude. No one was injured in the fall of the tree. Some say they saw it caught by the hands of angels and gently lowered to the ground. There were also those who said, in after years, that I had toppled the tree of my own accord. But so it is that stories grow. So it is that legends are made. Neither Hiawatha nor I lost any time in making the fullest use of the symbolism. The fallen pine had left a cavity so large that a subterranean current of muddy water could be seen moving sluggishly in its depths. We invited all present to throw into the gaping cavity all weapons that had ever shed human blood or in any way been used in war. During the rest of that day, as the sun slowly sank into the west, warriors followed the example of their chiefs, and soon the cavity was filled with a great assortment of weapons that would never again be used against human beings. When the sun rose the next day, all hands joined together in throwing the rich forest soil over the cavity that now contained the discarded implements. Soon there was a great mound. When the weapons of war were buried beneath nearly 6 feet of earth, Hiawatha climbed to the top of the mound and spoke. "Here beneath our feet is where all weapons of war belong, among the currents that flow in the nether regions, beneath the level of human knowing, beneath the level of our interest or concern. Let us bury these weapons of conflict and release the hatred and the mistrust that produced them. They do nothing for our people but cause suffering. They do not serve the needs of those who use them half so well as commerce, communication, brotherhood, and cooperation. Let us bury these weapons from sight, never to be considered again, and in their place let us plant a new tree, a tree of peace and understanding. With a well-proportioned young white pine that I had carefully selected and prepared, I climbed to the top of the mound to join Hiawatha. As I held the tree, Hiawatha knelt and scooped out a place for it in the freshly turned soil. When the place was prepared, I knelt beside him. Together we planted the new tree, the tree of the great peace, the tree that, in centuries to follow, became the most well-known tree east of the Mississippi, the tree of the great long leaves. As the leaders of the 5 nations sat in a circle around the newly planted tree, Hiawatha spoke to them in a new way, in a new tone, with a spirit that he now drew from all our hearts, with a voice that was only made possible through the profound harmony and agreement of the thousands who had gathered with us. We are at the beginning of a new time, he said, a time when the violent tendencies of human beings on islands far from the shores of this lake, far from this forest, far from any lands that we know, will grow and become ever more restless. We are living in the beginnings of the end times. It is good because it is the beginning of the healing that will remove the dishonest tree of warfare from human hearts forever. But just as the darkest hour of the night is just before the dawn of the new day, so things will get worse before they get better. We are living in the beginning of times when the lies that turn hearts from the path of peace will whisper more vigorously in human thoughts than ever before. So it is fitting at the beginning of these times, when the powers of warrior ways will grow in the hearts of people far from these shores, right and fitting that we honor the precedent of peace established here long ago. We are living in the land where people from all parts of the world will one day come to be healed. It is appropriate that today we plant the tree of the peaceful way. This tree we have planted here will grow and flourish in our own understanding, in our children's, and in our children's children's, for 12 more generations. This tree shall be strong, and during these generations much better ways will come to all the people who live beneath its teachings. The truths of this tree will flower not only in Iroquois' hearts, but in the hearts of tribes and nations far from these shores. But then a violent storm will come. A pale race will come from the east. They will be more numerous than all the game from here to the hunting ground of the Dakota. And in this storm, which will last for 5 long centuries, the tree of the great long leaves will be utterly demolished. Not one twig or needle will remain to be found. Men will have even forgotten where it once stood. A time of sorrow far worse than any we have ever known will fill all our lands. The numbers of our people will become few. Our songs will be forgotten. Yet, just when the grandmothers and grandfathers began to lose hope, just when the last storytellers have almost forgotten, suddenly it will be seen that in the very storm that uprooted the tree of the great long leaves, its cones were carried to the 4 directions, its seed scattered by the far winds. In the hilly country it will have quietly taken deep root, but it will grow unnoticed at first. The white race from the north will bring with them a powerful black people from the south, and in time, from the direction of the setting sun, they will be joined by a yellow people. These 3 races will come from the 3 directions to meet us here on these very hunting grounds. Our children will mingle with their children, and when the storm is past, the ways of peace and cooperation will flower among the people of the world and spread to every land, and all the Great Spirit's children will live together in harmony.